I should have known better than to take her bet. That's how this whole nightmare, or maybe I should call it a twisted awakening, began. It started off as a joke, a silly challenge thrown at me on a quiet Saturday afternoon. My friend Claire had that mischievous grin on her face, the kind of smile that always spelled trouble. She was the kind of person who never backed down from a dare and loved pushing boundaries just to see how far she could take people. Me, I was always the cautious one, the one who laughed it off but still ended up going along with her antics because deep down, I didn't want to be seen as boring. And that's exactly what trapped me. We were sitting in her living room, a half-finished board game sprawled across the floor, and she leaned back against the couch with that glint in her eyes. "Bet you wouldn't last one day in my maid outfit," she teased. At first, I thought she was joking. I rolled my eyes, but she pressed harder, waving her phone at me. "Come on, you've lost twice already in this game. Don't be such a coward. Double or nothing." I should have said no. But the way she kept poking fun at me, calling me scared, timid, predictable, it hit a nerve. I wanted to prove her wrong, to show I could take a risk. So I smirked, leaned forward, and said the words I would regret. "Fine. I'll do it. What's the worst that could happen?" She laughed, this wild laugh that made my stomach drop, and in that instant, I realized I had walked right into her trap. She disappeared upstairs and came back carrying a neatly folded black and white maid uniform, complete with lace trims, an apron, and even stockings. My jaw dropped. "You actually have one?" I asked, and she shrugged casually, as if keeping a maid outfit in her closet was the most normal thing in the world. "Of course," she said, her eyes sparkling with victory. "And now it's your turn." At first, I thought I could just slip it on, let her laugh, take a quick photo maybe, and then we'd all move on. That's what I told myself as I went to the bathroom and changed. But the second I saw my reflection in the mirror, everything shifted. The outfit clung to me in ways I didn't expect, reshaping the image I had of myself. The lace, the skirt, the fitted bodice, it all looked foreign and yet disturbingly natural. I froze, staring at my reflection, my pulse racing. My first instinct was to tear it off, but then another thought crept in. I didn't look ridiculous. I looked different. And that difference unsettled me more than anything. Claire nearly burst down the door when I didn't come out right away, and when I finally stepped into the living room, her jaw dropped, and then she exploded into laughter. "Oh my God," she gasped between giggles. "You actually look good in it. Like scary good." She snapped pictures before I could even react, and I lunged toward her, trying to snatch her phone, but she darted away. That's when she smirked again and said the words that still haunt me. "That's not over. You've got to serve me tonight. Full maid treatment." I thought she was kidding, but no, she wasn't. She made me bring her snacks, refill her drink, clean up the mess from the game. At first, I played along just to get it over with, but the longer it went on, the more I realized she wasn't going to stop. And the more I served her, the more I felt a strange shift happening inside me. The embarrassment was sharp, almost unbearable, but beneath it was something else, a flicker of curiosity, maybe even a sense of belonging to this new role. Every time she barked an order, I felt both humiliated and oddly alive. The real nightmare, though, started when she posted one of the pictures online. I didn't even know until my phone started buzzing nonstop with notifications. She had uploaded it to her story with a caption, "Guess who lost a bet? Meet my new maid." I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Friends saw it. Strangers saw it. People I barely talked to messaged me with laughing emojis, shocked comments, and questions I didn't want to answer. Panic surged through me, and I demanded she take it down. But she crossed her arms and shook her head. "Nope. A bet's a bet. Besides, you should thank me. People like it." And disturbingly, she wasn't wrong. Some of the responses weren't mocking. Some people said I looked convincing, even pretty. That word pretty hit me like lightning. I wasn't supposed to be pretty. I was supposed to be me, just a regular guy trying to get through life without attracting too much attention. But now, suddenly, I was something else in people's eyes, and I couldn't decide if I hated it or secretly wanted to lean into it. The days that followed blurred together. I thought it would fade, that people would forget, but Claire kept pushing. Every time I went over to her house, She found an excuse to bring the outfit back out. "Come on one more time," she'd say, "or you know you wear it better than I ever could." She wasn't just teasing anymore. She was testing me, pushing me into a space I wasn't prepared to occupy. And the strangest part was I stopped resisting as much. At first, I told myself it was easier to just give in, but deep down, part of me was curious. Then came the moment I'll never forget. Her cousin came over unexpectedly while I was still in the uniform. I froze, absolutely horrified, ready for the mockery, the judgment, the laughter. But instead, she tilted her head, studied me, and said softly, "You know, it actually suits you." No laughter, no ridicule, just quiet sincerity. That simple comment cut deeper than any joke. For the first time, I wasn't just playing dress-up for a bet. I was confronting something real. From that day on, everything felt different. The uniform wasn't just fabric anymore, it was a mirror. Every time I put it on, I saw a version of myself I had never acknowledged, one that terrified me but also fascinated me. I started noticing how I carried myself differently, how my voice softened when I played the role, how my reflection in the mirror didn't look like a parody, but like someone waiting to be discovered. I tried to push the thoughts away, to bury them under excuses and denials, but the truth was clawing its way to the surface. The pressure grew heavier when the whispers started at school. People asked questions, some cruel, some curious. I felt exposed, like I was living a double life I hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. Claire, for all her mischief, noticed my struggle. One night, when I was on the verge of breaking, she looked at me seriously for the first time and said, "You don't have to run from this. Maybe the bet backfired, but maybe it showed you something you didn't know about yourself." I wanted to scream at her, to blame her for ruining everything, but her words stuck with me. Late at night, lying awake, I kept replaying it all in my head. The humiliation, the laughter, the strange sense of freedom, the way people looked at me differently. Was this who I really was? Or was I just trapped in a bet that had spiraled too far out of control? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing. My life would never be the same again. And that's the part that scares me the most. Because sometimes, when no one's around, I find myself reaching for the Maid uniform willingly, not out of obligation or fear, but out of a quiet need to see that reflection again. And in those moments, I wonder if the bet didn't just backfire on me, maybe it uncovered the truth I'd been too afraid to face all along. The night I finally wore the uniform willingly was the night I knew things had changed for good. I didn't even tell Claire. I waited until the house was empty, locked my door, pulled the outfit from where I had hidden it in my closet under a pile of jackets, and slipped it on piece by piece. Every movement felt forbidden, every button like a secret I couldn't take back. When I caught sight of myself in the mirror, I froze again, but this time there was no laughter in the background, no bet forcing me into it.
It was just me.
And the strangest part was, instead of feeling embarrassed, I felt right. Almost like I had been holding my breath my entire life and finally exhaled. But that feeling didn't come without guilt. The second I heard footsteps in the hallway, panic surged through me. I yanked the uniform off, stuffed it back under the pile, and sat there shaking, wondering what would happen if anyone found out. It didn't take long before that fear became reality. My younger brother barged into my room one afternoon without knocking, and there it was, the uniform, half hidden but not enough. His eyes widened, and my blood went cold. He didn't laugh, didn't shout, just stared before whispering, "Why do you have that?" I scrambled for excuses, said it was a prank, a leftover from a bet with Claire, nothing serious. He narrowed his eyes, clearly unconvinced, but he didn't say anything else. He just walked out, leaving me to stew in the silence, wondering if he was going to tell our parents. That night at dinner, I couldn't swallow a bite. Every time my mom glanced at me, I thought she knew. Every time my dad asked a question, I thought he was testing me. My brother never mentioned it, but the look he gave me across the table was enough to keep me awake for nights afterward. Claire, of course, found the whole thing amusing when I told her. "So, what if they find out?" she said casually. "It's not like you're hurting anyone. And honestly, you look more comfortable like that than in anything else." Her words dug at me because deep down, I knew she was right. The more time I spent in that uniform, the more I realized it wasn't about the bet anymore. It was about me confronting a version of myself I had always buried. But I wasn't ready to admit it. Not to her, not to anyone, not even to myself. The turning point came at a party. Claire dragged me along, promising it would be just a casual night with friends. But halfway through, she whispered in my ear with that familiar mischievous tone, "I dare you to wear it here." My stomach dropped. I shook my head violently, but she pushed, saying no one would care, that people would probably find it hilarious. Against every ounce of reason in me, I caved. The bathroom felt like a prison cell as I changed, my hands trembling, heart racing. When I finally stepped out, the room went silent for half a second before exploding with laughter, cheers, and gasps. Phones came out instantly. People shouted my name, teased me, snapped pictures. I thought I would collapse from the humiliation. But then something unexpected happened. Among the laughter and noise, a few voices rose above the rest, not mocking, but admiring. Someone said, "You actually pull it off," another murmured. "That's kind of impressive." The words hit me harder than the laughter. For the first time, it wasn't just a joke to some people. But with that came a new kind of danger. Photos from the party spread online faster than I could keep track. Strangers commented, friends I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. People started asking questions I didn't know how to answer. My identity was slipping out of my hands like sand, and I didn't know whether to cling to it or let it go. My parents found out soon after, not from me, but from a neighbor who saw the pictures. The confrontation was brutal. My father's voice shook with anger, my mother's eyes filled with confusion, and I stood there in silence, unable to explain the storm inside me. I wanted to tell them it started as a bet, but the words stuck in my throat because deep down I knew that wasn't the whole truth anymore. For days, the house felt like a battlefield. My brother avoided me. My parents spoke in hushed whispers when they thought I wasn't listening, and I stayed locked in my room, staring at the uniform like it was both my curse and my salvation. I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't stop myself from wearing it when no one was around, even when I knew the risks. It wasn't just about the clothes anymore, it was about the person I saw staring back at me in the mirror, someone I didn't fully understand but couldn't ignore. The breaking point came when Claire showed up with a bag in her hands. Inside wasn't just the Maid uniform, there were other outfits too, things she thought would help me explore. Dresses, skirts, even makeup. I recoiled at first, terrified of going further down this path, but she looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're scared because you know it's real. Stop running." Her words echoed in my head for days. She was right, I was scared, but not of the clothes. I was scared of myself. Scared of the truth that maybe, just maybe, the bet hadn't trapped me at all. Maybe it had set me free. And now, I stand at a crossroads. My life feels like it's split into the person I was before the bet, and the person I've discovered since. The whispers haven't stopped, the questions haven't faded, and my parents' disappointment still hangs heavy in the air. But in the quiet moments, when it's just me and the reflection in the mirror, I feel something stronger than fear. I feel possibility. I don't know where this path will take me, but I know one thing for sure. Her bet backfired, and now I can't go back to the person I used to be. The days after Claire brought me that bag of clothes felt like walking on the edge of a cliff. I couldn't bring myself to throw them out, but I couldn't leave them in the open either. They stayed hidden under my bed, like buried treasure or contraband, and every night I lay awake knowing they were there. The temptation grew unbearable. One evening, when the house was quiet, I pulled out one of the dresses, simple but elegant, and slipped it over my head. My hands shook, my pulse raced, but when I saw myself in the mirror, it wasn't just a costume anymore. It was a version of me that felt frighteningly natural. I tried on the makeup Claire had slipped in the bag, fumbling clumsily with the brushes, smearing eyeliner, smudging lipstick, but when I finally stepped back, I hardly recognized myself. And yet deep inside I did. That reflection wasn't a stranger. It was someone I had been ignoring for far too long. But that quiet experiment turned into my worst nightmare. My brother walked in again, this time without hesitation, and this time, I couldn't explain it away as a prank. His eyes widened, his mouth opened, but instead of laughter, he whispered something that cut me like glass. "Does Mom know?" I froze. Before I could respond, he stormed out, and I knew I was out of time. The confrontation that followed was brutal. My parents sat me down at the kitchen table, the weight of their silence heavier than any words. Finally, my father asked, "Is this who you are now?" His voice was steady, but laced with something I couldn't read: anger, disappointment, maybe fear. My mother's hands trembled as she avoided my eyes. I wanted to tell them everything, that it started as a bet, that I didn't mean for it to go this far, but the words tangled in my throat. The truth was that I didn't even know how to explain it anymore. It wasn't just about the maid uniform, or the dresses, or the makeup. It was about me. And I couldn't make them understand when I barely understood myself. After that night, things changed in the house. My parents didn't scream or punish me, they just stopped looking at me the same way. My father buried himself in work, my mother drifted into a quiet sadness, and my brother barely spoke to me at all. The silence was worse than any shouting could have been. Every day, I woke up feeling like a stranger in my own home. Claire, of course, didn't let up. If anything, she pushed harder, insisting that I needed to stop hiding, that I should own it. "You don't see what I see," she told me. "You're different now. And it's not a bad thing." She convinced me to come to a small gathering with her friends, people I barely knew. I resisted at first, but she kept saying it was safe, that no one would judge, that I deserved to be myself. Against all my instincts, I agreed. That night, I stood in front of her mirror as she worked on my makeup with practiced hands, transforming me piece by piece until the reflection staring back at me was no longer the fumbling attempt I had made alone. It was polished, striking, almost unrecognizable, and yet terrifyingly real. My heart pounded as she handed me a dress from the bag, something sleek and fitted. "Trust me," she whispered. And for some reason I did. Walking into that gathering was like stepping into fire. Every pair of eyes turned toward me, and I thought I would collapse under the weight of their stares. I braced myself for laughter, for whispers, for the sting of humiliation. But instead, something unexpected happened. A few smiles. A few compliments. Even a simple, "You look great." It felt unreal, like I had stepped into an alternate universe where I was allowed to exist without ridicule. For a brief moment, I almost believed it was possible. But then the door burst open, and my stomach dropped. Someone I never wanted to see me like this walked in, an old friend from school, someone who had mocked me before, someone who held the kind of power to ruin everything with a single word. His eyes locked on me, and I saw it, the recognition, the smirk spreading across his face, the spark of cruelty in his eyes. My blood turned to ice. He didn't say anything right away, but the way he pulled out his phone made my whole body tremble. One picture, one post, and the fragile world I was building could shatter completely. Claire grabbed my arm, whispering, "Don't panic. You've got this." But I could barely breathe. I wanted to run, to tear off the dress, to disappear. And yet, a tiny voice in me whispered that maybe running wasn't the answer anymore. Maybe this was the moment everything had been leading to, the moment I had to choose between hiding forever or facing the storm head-on. My heart pounded as I watched him lift his phone, the flash about to capture me, freeze me in time, expose me to everyone I knew. The room held its breath, waiting to see what I would do. And that's when I realized I was out of time. The moment his phone lifted, I swear the world slowed down. The air thickened, my pulse thundered in my ears, and I could see the faint glow of the screen reflecting off his smirk. I wanted to vanish, to sink into the floor and never be seen again.
But something inside me snapped.
Maybe it was exhaustion from running, maybe it was Claire's hand gripping my arm, maybe it was the endless nights of hiding who I was. Whatever it was, it pushed words out of me before I could stop myself. "Go ahead," I said, my voice shaking but louder than I expected. The room went silent. Every eye turned to me. My old friend paused, stunned for just a second, his thumb hovering over the screen. "Take the picture. Post it. I don't care anymore." My chest felt like it would explode. My legs trembled, but I forced myself to stand taller. If he was going to expose me, then I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of watching me beg. Claire's grip tightened, as if she was holding me up, but I wasn't backing down. For the first time, I wasn't shrinking under the weight of everyone else's judgment. I was daring them to see me. The smirk on his face faltered, replaced by confusion. He lowered the phone slightly, scanning my expression like he was searching for the fear that wasn't there anymore. The whispers started then. Not mocking this time, but quiet, curious murmurs rippling through the room. Someone whispered, "She's braver than all of us." Another voice muttered, "Looks better than half the people here." Those words, small as they were, felt like oxygen in my lungs. My old friend scoffed, shoving his phone back in his pocket, muttering, "Whatever. This is pathetic." But I saw it the way he avoided my eyes, the way he turned away. He hadn't won. When he left the room, I expected everyone else to scatter too, to laugh, to whisper, but they didn't. One girl walked over, smiled gently, and said, "I like your dress." That simple kindness nearly broke me. I nodded, my throat too tight to respond, and Claire slipped her arm around my shoulder. "See," she whispered. "Told you you're stronger than you think." That night, walking home, I felt like my entire world had cracked open. The fear was still there, yes, but it wasn't crushing me anymore. For the first time, I felt the faint stirrings of something different pride. It wasn't about the Maid uniform anymore, or the bet, or even Claire's games. It was about me, finally standing in front of the mirror and not looking away. The days that followed weren't magically perfect. My parents still struggled. My brother barely spoke. Some people mocked me online, and others whispered behind my back. But there were also messages I never expected, people telling me I was brave, people asking me how I found the courage, people confessing their own secrets. For every cruel comment, there was someone who said, "You're not alone." And maybe that's what matters most. The bet that started as a joke, the uniform that was meant to humiliate me, it all backfired in a way none of us expected. It forced me to face myself, to stop hiding, to stop running. Now, when I look at the Maid uniform folded neatly in my drawer, I don't see shame anymore. I see the beginning of my story. The night everything changed. The night I stopped letting fear dictate who I was. Claire was right, the bet backfired. But maybe it didn't backfire on me. Maybe it backfired on the part of me that was too afraid to live. And though I don't know exactly where this path will lead, I know one thing for certain. I'm not going back.